This is the Reviewing Network Live, a weekly stream of consciousness recording session where I sit back with you folks out there, talk about some of the big news stories from the past week, and some other things I found that might be of amusement to you out there. I think you might get a kick out of it. Now, these are more like audio podcasts and are much longer than my usual videos and are also, for the most part, unedited and will contain some foul language. So, if you're easily offended by that, I advise you to maybe step back a bit, maybe go somewhere else. But hey, if you're up to the challenge, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Thanks. And for the 94th time ever, we are live from the Reviewing Network studios, coming to you on this late Sunday, Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to everybody, for another exciting episode of the Reviewing Network Live. And this is coming late because, as of the time I'm recording this, it's 11 o'clock on Sunday night. And usually I have the episode up and ready to go at this point, but we had a late dinner tonight, and that's why I'm kind of getting to this very late on. So we have a lot to get to anyway, so we have so I'm on a little bit of a time crunch here, so bear with me. Let's just go ahead and get into where we usually start off with the weekend box office, which has certainly a number of different interesting aspects to talk about, specifically with the two new releases, which both made it into the top 5 this week. So, without further ado, let's get right to it. And we'll start off with the number 5 film, which was the number 2 film from last week, which was kind of expected to happen, despite the good word of mouth coming out of the movie. From the world of John Wick, Ballerina, which dropped 62% from last week, $9.4 million this weekend, bringing its 2-week total to $41.8 million. The good news is it did surpass $90 million worldwide. That was its budget, so they at least made their budget back, but clearly Lionsgate was expecting a whole lot more from this movie in general, and sadly, it just couldn't really live up to the muster there, and really, it wasn't hard to see why. This was going to have a hard time opening up in the spot that it was in general. I feel like you could have put something else there, and I don't know, this just felt like I think the biggest mistake overall was making John Wick the main focus of the marketing. I just don't think it worked out in their favor overall. And just seemed like a really bad idea to put him all over the marketing, even though the role in here is a very, very much a cameo and doesn't really it's not really adding anything to put him in there except for name recognition. And that's just my personal thought on that. But $41.8 million after 2 weeks. This is Lionsgate's big summer money tempo, and this is their big money grab for the summer, and it's already on its way out. So Lionsgate, I think, is going to go through a major change in its film releasing going into the future, because, yeah, they have not been on a hot streak as of late, and this is another prime example that things could begin to change very soon for Lionsgate in general in the months to come. But we'll find out what that's going to be like it's later on down the road. But in the meantime, number 4, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, which has done a whole lot better staying sturdy compared to the last Mission Impossible movie. Brought in $10.3 million, only dropping 30% from last week, which is actually the strongest hold of the top 10 in general, in terms of drop-offs. Like, all the other ones have like 61%, 52%, 41%. But 30.5% drop-off from Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, bringing in $10.3 million. Its 4-week total right now, $166.3 million. Worldwide is up to $506 million. So they at least made their budget back, but I still don't think that Paramount's really happy with the fact that this is a film that cost $400 million to make, and they're not even close to nearly doubling the budget on it. But it is having a much longer life at the box office than Dead Reckoning did. I mean, Paramount was smart to not release it the week before Barbie and Oppenheimer came out. I guess that was the smartest thing they could have done with this, but which brings us to number 3, a movie that I did not hear too much about per se, but yet this has had a very interesting reception for most people. Number 3, this is Materialist, the new film from Celine Song, who did Past Lives, which was nominated for some Oscars a couple of years ago, and stars Pedro Pascal, who's about a month away from kind of having his big breakout blockbuster with Fantastic Four, we hope. Dakota Johnson, who's coming off of the flop that was Madam Web, and Chris Evans, who's still trying to continue his career post Captain America. And this was a romantic drama that is described as a young, ambitious New York matchmaker finding herself torn between the perfect match and her imperfect ex. And this was an A24 release, and I think that's part of the reason why most people have been very skeptical about this, because it is a film by A24, which means that, yeah, of course there's going to be a lot of crazy effed up shit in here, and there's definitely some things in here that are rightfully criticizable. And I haven't seen the movie itself, but you know, there's a whole thing about the subplot during the second half that really kind of overshadows the first half in general, and it's really shown in a lot of the movies in general. But audiences are not very receptive to it. B- on Cinema Score is not really the way to go if you want to have a long hold of the box office. But critical reviews have actually been pretty strong. 87% on Rotten Tomatoes, 70 out of 100 on Metacritic, which is not bad at all. So, yeah, it's a very polarizing film indeed. But, you know, for Dakota Johnson and Chris, who needed a hit desperately after Madam Web, I mean, this one did not cost a whole lot of money at all. So, yeah, it's easy to probably make this one back here. I mean, is $20 million is easy to make back here. So, no matter what, I think they are in the position to basically make money on this. And really, I didn't hear a lot of people really talking about this, but I think it is kind of a sleeper hit in general. I mean, that's just my thinking behind it. Even if it kind of peters out next week, it should surpass the $20 million mark regardless. And how to do worldwide numbers? 15.5 million worldwide. So it's it's less than 5 million away from doing that, which I think it'll do that easily. But so far, the biggest surprise of the box office thus far the box office so far is the fact that Materialist managed to do well enough to get up to the number 3 spot at the box office this week. Which brings us to number 2, the number 1 movie for the last 3 weeks, and that is Lilo and Stitch. Not surprising that it would drop off, considering what the number 1 movie is. $15.5 million this weekend, dropping 52%. Again, that's to be expected, but Disney is not complaining about this whatsoever. $366.3 million. Domestically, if you count worldwide numbers, it is up to $858 million worldwide. Cost them $100 million to make for a movie that they were literally going to dump on Disney+. They're not complaining whatsoever. This thing is a gangbuster hit. It's going to do very well. And sure enough, it has continued to do very well in the 4 weeks since it's come out. And blew away the box office in general. A lot of people were not expecting this to do as well as it did, but lo and behold, it did very well to stick in there, and good for them. Good for them. I really wish that it would beat a Minecraft movie, but it's really not looking likely to do that at this point, which really sucks. But this is definitely a much better movie than a Minecraft movie is, and it's definitely a lot better than the number 1 movie, which, look, I expected this to happen, but I'm still not happy it did. Number 1 this week, How to Train Your Dragon, the live-action remake by DreamWorks. Yes, DreamWorks is now getting in on Disney's remake game, and audiences came out in drones to see it. $83.7 million, which is the highest opening for the How to Train Your Dragon franchise. And shockingly enough, this thing costs less than the original animated How to Train Your Dragon movie made. How to Train Your Dragon was cost at. How to Train Your Dragon the animated was $165 million. This is only $150 million. I still don't know how the hell they did that, but lo and behold, they did. And if you count worldwide numbers, it's already at $200 million. So it wasn't quite Disney numbers in terms of the highest live-action remake totals, but it's still not good. It's still big enough for them. I mean, the thing with NBC and the thing with Universal is that they are right up there with Disney and how they market everything. I mean, they have a wide assortment of areas that they can promote their stuff with. NBC, all their different properties. WrestleMania, they had a promotion with that, and of course, Epic Universe, which I think was the only reason why this movie got made. And the sad part is, most people looked at this, and the people that bitched and moaned about Disney's live-action remakes all came out in drones to praise this movie, and I just don't get it, man. This movie does not deserve this heap of praise. It wasn't that great of a movie. It ended up being what I was afraid it was going to be. A pointless live-action remake. A pointless shot-for-shot remake that isn't really a shot-for-shot remake because we've added 30 minutes of stuff that was completely unnecessary. Like, they completely lied to us about the fact that this was supposed to be a shot-for-shot remake, and this is anything but that. I mean, yeah, there are shots that are taken from the movie, but A shot-for-shot remake means you make the movie as you did with the original. What they did here was what they did was what Universal did with Psycho nearly 30 years ago. They claimed it was a shot-for-shot remake, but then they added new shots, which made no sense whatsoever, and thus completely devoids the point of a shot-for-shot remake. It just doesn't work. It just didn't work, and I was really let down because I did go into this giving it a chance. I wanted to go in there and like the movie, and I just couldn't do it, man. I couldn't do it with this one. Lilo and Stitch, I think, is definitely the far superior movie of the two. I still would rather watch that one again. I'm never going to watch this How to Train Your Dragon again, and I'm certainly not looking forward to the second How to Train Your Dragon movie, which they're already doing for 2027, because it's going to be the same damn movie over and over again. And we all know what's coming, because now the floodgates are going to be officially open. So do not be surprised that if within the next 5 years, by this time the decade comes to a close, this is we're going to see the live-action Despicable Me remake, with probably Steve Carell as Gru coming up by the end of the decade. And then after that, we'll see the Shrek remake at some point. And then we'll see the Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs remake within 10 years. And then probably a Toy Story live-action remake by 2035. It's just looking like that's what's going to happen. It's just looking like that's going to be the case. And you can't convince me otherwise, because this is now a trend now that other studios are trying to do this. But, yeah. This is the main reason why I'm upset about this whole thing is the fact that it really does feel like animation as a whole is dying out and becoming obsolete. I mean, Brad Bird said it best when the whole thing about he said is when he was in a meeting with the studio executives, he was just like, if you could do this animation, why can't you do this in live action? And he basically said, congratulations, you made animation obsolete. And because of the numbers like this, congratulations, America, you made, and everyone around the world, you are making animation obsolete. And this is exactly what's happening here. And it scares me what's going to happen next, because next week there is a new animation coming out, an original animation from Disney and Pixar coming, and that is Elio, which should do good business at the box office. Emphasis on the word should, but probably not going to, because the word of mouth has not been that strong early on. This has a budget reportedly of around $300 million, because there was a lot of redevelopment going on, and right now the early projections are somewhere between $27 and $34 million, which would be one of the worst openings, and it would take an Elemental style summer run to make some kind of a profit for this film. And I hate that that's the case, but it just looks like it's going to be that way, and I don't want it to be that way. I wish the same amount of people who went to go see How to Train Your Dragon this weekend will go see Elio next weekend, but it just doesn't feel like it's going to happen. I hated the decision for Disney to move that away from the same day How to Train Your Dragon would have been. You should have put this out the week before, on June 6th. Get it out before How to Train Your Dragon. I think Elio would have done a whole lot better, but I'm scared of how that's not going to perform well. I think the big news story we're going to be talking about next week is 28 Years Later, which is looking like it's going to be a monster hit, quite literally. I mean, horror is on a hot streak right now, with Final Destination Bloodlines crossing the $130 million mark. Sinners is at $275 million right now. And the early word of mouth on 28 Years Later is that it's really looking like a strong hit. It's going to be a big hit. They're projecting somewhere between $50 to $60 million for the opening weekend, which is pretty good, considering that it only cost $65 million to make. And it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. But if the early word of mouth is as good as it was with Final Destination Bloodlines, I would think it's going to do that and then some. And I think we're going to be talking more about how 28 Years Later is probably the #1 movie at the box office next weekend, and not something like Elio, which will open a lot of questions about the future of animation in general. Where are we going with that? But in terms of other releases that came out this week, The Life of Chuck, the Mike Flanagan movie starring Tom Hiddleston, written by Stephen King, has not done very well in general. It brought in only $2 million this weekend in its expanded release, dropping it after 2 weeks only at $2.4 million. And there was supposedly a lot, and it seemed like Neon was just pushing this out there and didn't really have a whole lot a whole lot of marketing towards it, so it just kind of came and went, and nobody really ever talked about it. And that's a shame, because I've heard a lot of good things about it. I've heard a lot of good things about the film in general, Plus, it's a film by Mike Flanagan. Mike Flanagan cannot do any wrong as a filmmaker as a whole. I just don't think the marketing on this was all that strong in general, and it really does show, unfortunately, in the end results here at the box office. I don't think Neon did a great job of selling this movie to people, unfortunately. So yeah, that's the weekend box office as a whole. So we have a ton of news stories to get to. So let's just go ahead and jump right on into the big news stories. Starting off with the biggest one that came early on Monday. So like I said, the biggest news story of the week pretty much came early on in the week. And that was, of course, the news that, yes, ladies and gentlemen, the rumors are true. This disastrous run of Warner Brothers Discovery is coming to a close. Warner Brothers Discovery is splitting back into two, and Streaming and Studios is one of them, and Global Networks is the other. And here's how the Hollywood Reporter states it. Hollywood conglomerate Warner Brothers Discovery on Monday made it official, unveiling plans to separate the company in a tax-free transaction, including into two publicly traded companies, enabling each to maximize its potential. The streaming and services company will consist of Warner Brothers Television, Warner Brothers Motion Picture Groups, DC Studios, HBO, and HBO Max, as well as the legendary film and television libraries. The second business, Global Networks, will include such entertainment, sports, and news television brands around the world as CNN, TNT Sports in the US, and Discovery free-to-air channels across Europe, and digital products such as the profitable Disney Plus streaming service and Bleacher Report. So yeah, Warner Brothers and Discovery is finally splitting up. Whew! Thank God. I mean, good Lord, you have no idea how much I've been waiting for this moment. We can finally get rid of David Zaslav for good. David Zaslav, President and CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery, will serve as President and CEO of Streaming and Studio. Oh, we almost got rid of him. Oh. Yeah, David Zaslav isn't going anywhere, sadly. But, yeah, but that's kind of to be expected. But, yeah, David Zaslav will serve as President and CEO of Streaming and Studios. Gunnar Wiedenfels, CFO of Warner Brothers Discovery, will serve as President and CEO of Global Networks. Both will continue in their present roles as WBD until the separation. The split is expected to be completed by mid-2026, subject to closing and other conditions, including final approval by the Warner Brothers Discovery Board, receipts of tax opinions, and or a private letter ruling from the IRS with respect to the tax-free nature of the transactions for U.S. federal income tax purposes and market conditions, the conglomerate said. The cultural significance of this great company and the impact its stories that it's brought to life for more than a century have touched countless people all over the world, Zaslav said in a statement. It's a treasured legacy we will probably continue in this next chapter of our celebrated history. Yeah, I call bullshit on that, but there's a lot of questions about this per se. So what exactly is going into? Well, let me continue on here because there was another story that came out shortly after this. But see, Warner Brothers has this $37 billion debt. So where is that money going to go? Well, in another article from the Hollywood Reporter, it's safe to assume the majority of Warner Brothers Discovery's roughly $37 billion in debt load will exist with the spun-off Global Networks. The new company's new president and CEO, Gunnar Wiedenfels, said on Monday, a not insignificant portion will remain with Streaming and Studios, which will remain under the current eye of, as I said, David Zaslav. It's too early to talk about a target capital structure. We haven't made final decisions yet, and there's a lot we need to work through between now and when this. It literally says it in here. Between now and when this deal closes. I don't know if that's the way he said it or that's how the article puts it out there. But Wiedenfels told media analysis on a conference call. A couple of things can be said though. Number one, it's safe to assume that the majority of debt is going to live with Global Networks in a smaller portion, but not an insignificant portion, on Streaming and Studios as well. At the end of March, Warner Brothers Discovery had gross debts of $38 billion, which is comprised of total debt $37.4 billion and financial leases $535 million. The 2022 merger of Warner Media, owned by AT&T and Discovery, created more than $50 billion in debt. So that's $88 billion in debt put to both of these. And it's just like, I don't get it. I don't get it with all this. But I'm trying to see if I can find the details on this. Because they had a thing separating what's going into what. Like, what specific area is going to be in one specific company in general. I hate that I have to go back to Variety for this, but they have kind of a good understanding of what's going into what here. But Warner Bros. Discovery Streaming and Studios goes like this. Max Global Streaming Service, which will soon be rebranded to HBO Max, the HBO linear channels, TNT Sports International in UK and Ireland, the Warner Bros. Motion Picture Group comprising of Warner Bros., New Line Cinema, and Warner Bros. Animation, DC Studios and DC Comics Publishing, Warner Bros. Television Group, including WB-TV, Unscripted Television, Warner Bros. Animation, Cartoon Network, and Hanna-Barbera Studios. Warner Bros. Games, tours, retails, and experiences including consumer products and brand licensing. Studio production facilities in Burbank and Warner Bros. Studios in England. And then over at WBG Global Network, they will have the U.S. General and Lifestyle Entertainment Networks, TNT, TBS, Turner Classic Movies, OWN, HGTV, Food Network TLC, Discovery Channel, Animal Planet, Cartoon Network, and Adult Swim. CNN, including CNN International and its forthcoming subscription streaming service, Discovery Plus, a streaming service, TNT Sports USA, including rights with Major League Baseball, NCAA Men's Basketball, NHL, U.S. Soccer Federation, Unraveled, NASCAR, Roland Garros, NCAA Big 12 Football and Men's Basketball, NCAA Big East Men's and Women's Basketball, Bleacher Report and House of Highlights under TNT Sports, and Eurosports.com and Golf Digest under TNT Sports. And they have a little graphic here basically summing up everything we talked about on here. So, in a way, we are getting a notable change in the company, but at the same time, it's pretty much going to be the same way it was before. One of the things that they said in particular was that they weren't going to, there hasn't been any plans as of yet to cancel any of the cable networks that they have in general. So a lot of that's going to stay put for now. We'll wait to see what happens. But then again, I'm reading right here, there are a couple of channels that will be shut down. Just side channels, like HBO Family is getting cut down on August 15th. So is Thriller, the Cinemax Multiplex channels, Thriller Max, Movie Max, Outer Max. So those are all going to be going. So those could be the only early signs going forward. But you can also see why Cartoon Network stuff is moving over to Hulu now, because Cartoon Network stuff is basically going to be expanded out, not just to the Cartoon Network itself, but to other streaming services. That's why the new Gumball reboot is going to be a Hulu exclusive on there. So I would not be shocked at all if we see more of that down the road here. But either way you look at it, it's a change. It's something that we kind of want to see, but it really isn't going to matter because the man who made these stupid decisions is still there. And it just really feels like by doing this, he's not going away anytime soon. As much as we want him to go away, it's just never going to happen at this point. So whatever happens to the studio going forward, this is like he's the captain of this sinking ship. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that one. So it's a very, very interesting scenario indeed for what's happening over at Warner Brothers. So with all that said, on to the next story. And of course is that the news that The Incredible 3 now has a director on board. Brad Bird is not directing this one, but he is going to be involved in writing the script for this one. Again, going back to the Hollywood Reporter, it says that Peter Sohn, who directed Elemental and The Good Dinosaur, will direct the third installment of the critically and commercially successful animated series. Brad Bird wrote the screenplays for and directed the first two films in the franchise, which have earned a combined $1.8 billion at the box office. Bird is currently in the process of writing the script for the threequel, which will be produced by Bird and Dana Murray, who produced the Oscar-winning Soul. The franchise follows married couples Bob and Helen Parr, Craig T. Nelson, and Holly Hunter, who live in the quiet suburbs with their three children after being forced to hide their superpowers by a new government mandate. Samuel L. Jackson and Sarah Vowell are part of the main cast. And of course, last year at D23, they made the announcement that this is coming, and that Bird was developing the new project, although no more information was given at the time of its release. Bird's schedule seems to be the reason as to why he's not directing this, as he's in pre-production on Skydancer's Ray Gun. Sohn and Bird have a long history of collaboration. Sohn has worked on every animated Bird film, including The Incredibles and Incredibles 2, up until this year's Ray Gun. Bird has been a mentor to Sohn, and Sohn was specifically chosen to carry The Incredibles torch by Bird and Pixar creative chief Pete Docter. Sohn is a Pixar veteran, having also voiced characters in various movies for the studio like Ratatouille, Monsters University, and Lightyear. Elemental, Sohn's second movie that he directed, was nominated for the Best Animated Feature Oscar last year. So yeah, they got the same director who did Elemental, which is a good movie. It's a movie I really liked. Yeah, it's not going to be the same without Brad Bird there, but I trust Brad Bird in his choosing here. I mean, they wouldn't just pick this guy in particular because of just specific reasons. I mean, there has to be a reason why that he chose him out of anybody else in general. Can he make a good movie? I think that's all what we want to see from this. Can this guy make a good film? He made a great film. He made a really good film with Elemental a couple years ago. The Good Dinosaur, not so much. I really don't like that movie. I think that's definitely one of their worst movies. Maybe the worst thing they've ever done. I mean, Cars 2 is bad, but I don't know. I'd have to watch Cars 2 again, but I remember not liking The Good Dinosaur. It was basically Diet Land Before Time, pretty much. And yeah, so that's what. So I mean, like I said, I think we all would want to see Brad Bird returning to the director's chair on this, but whatever they got here is fine. I think it'll turn out very well. I mean, just give us a good movie. I think that's all we really want. Just give us a good Incredibles film so we can have a really good trilogy in general here. But so with all that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next story we have here. Not one of those things I'm actually kind of surprised they've taken a long time to actually do this, but they've got the right people to do this, so I'm very excited to talk about this here. This comes from Deadline Hollywood, and it says, after collaborating on one of the great TV characters of the 21st century, Matthew McConaughey and True Detective creator Nick Pizzolatto have set their sights on another classic character to tackle. Sources tell Deadline that McConaughey is in talks to star in Skydance's feature film based on the iconic Mike Hammer from a script by Pizzolatto. Skydance acquired the rights to Mickey Spillane and Max Allan Collins' Mike Hammer franchise with plans to develop and produce the best-selling book series into a feature film. Skydance's David Ellison, Dana Goldberg, and Don Granger will produce alongside Entertainment 360's Gavin Casati. Benjamin Faulkner at Pendleton will also produce, as well as Ken F. Levine. Collins will executive produce with James Spillane serving as co-producer.
The only thing better than buying
Stupid Lowe's that was playing as I was reading this, but Karen Sage will oversee the project for Skydance. Hammer is the protagonist of a series of hardboiled detective novels starting with 1947's I, the Jury, becoming one of the most popular figures of the genre. With more than 250 million copies of Mike Hammer's books sold globally, it often is recognized as the most popular American mystery thriller series of all time. Hammer is credited with inspiring numerous other characters, including Dirty Harry, Jack Reacher, and James Bond, who Ian Fleming famously referred to as the British answer to Mike Hammer. Ooh, excuse me. Had a burp there. McConaughey and Pizzolatto have teased a reunion for years following the success of Season 1 of True Detective, which earned both of them Emmy nominations. There have even been talks of the two reuniting along with fellow True Detective star Woody Harrelson for another season. But in recent weeks, their attention zeroed in on the Mike Hammer movies after Pizzolatto got him the script. Hammer has all the makings of another chance the two towns can blow out of the water, and now the project will look to land a high-profile director to take over the reins. While McConaughey hasn't starred in a live-action film since 2019's The Gentleman, he did reprise his role in... My God, shut up! I don't care about what's going on at Lowe's. I might have to just turn the volume down if it interrupts me again, but... While McConaughey hasn't starred in a live-action movie since 2019's The Gentleman, he did reprise his role in the animated picture Sing 2 in 2021. The Oscar winner has a big 2025 ahead of him. His film The Rivals of Amazon King premiered at this year's South by Southwest Film Festival and quickly became one of the big winners in the fest, earning rave reviews following its premiere. He has the Apple original film The Lost Bus borrowing later this year with Paul Greengrass directing. Apple recently released a teaser trailer which drew huge buzz on social media, with many expecting the film and McConaughey to be back in the mix among contenders this awards season. He is also set to return to TV with the Apple and Skydance series Brothers, which reunites with Harrelson, is also set to star. Pizzolatto's recent works include his first film as writer-director, Easy Waltz, as well as multiple projects for Skydance and a television show in development with Netflix. Now, this is not the first time that Mike Hammer has been adapted to the big screen. There's been so many other different, not just big screen, but just interpretations in movies and television. Most notably in film, he's been played by people like Biff Elliott, played him in the original 1953 release, I, the Jury, and more recently, Armand Assante played him in the 1982 version of I, the Jury, which was not the big hit when it came out, but has gone on to have a good cult following. And as Stacy Keach is most notable for the more recent Mike Hammer movies, he's been playing it on TV, in CBS shows, and also the movies as well. And it's a character that he played very much into the 2000s. But this is something that I feel like should have been given another adaptation to down the road as many times since then. I mean, this is a character that is synonymous with one of the most legendary film characters of all time. I mean, this is something where I feel like this is something that should have been well in the works in general. And I think if they get somebody like a Matthew McConaughey to play this character, I think it could turn out very well. I would have also suggested maybe J.K. Simmons. I always look at Mickey Spillane. I think of J.K. Simmons in a role similar to what Stacy Keach played later on down the road. Darren McGavin himself actually played him in one of the early TV series. I'm looking here, and I think it was in the 1950s he played him. I never saw that one in particular, but this has the potential to actually turn out very good. Matthew McConaughey has become a really good actor in the last decade or so, going back to how his career got started, and not starring in terrible romantic comedies. And, of course, True Detective was one of those big things in his career renaissance. So, yeah, this is definitely something I'm most looking forward to checking out and seeing if it actually turns out very well here. So, really looking forward to seeing how that turns out. So, with that said, on to the next story. And that is that Wonder Woman is looking like she's on her way back into the DC, not really DC Cinematic Universe, but the DC Studios superhero library. It was already kind of revealed that James Gunn is reportedly going to add Batman into Superman, the sequel to Superman coming up. But that hasn't been officially confirmed just yet. But he did confirm this story that I'm about to talk about here. A new feature film about DC Studios DC superhero Wonder Woman is being written right now, says DC Studio co-chief James Gunn in an interview with Entertainment Weekly. The movie would be in addition to an HBO series about Wonder Woman's home of Themyscira, which Gunn said is slow-moving, but it's moving. The film would be a fresh start for the character, who was played on the big screen by Gal Gadot in 2017's Wonder Woman and Justice League, 2020's Wonder Woman 1984, 2021's Zack Snyder's Justice League, and a cameo in 2023's The Flash. But Gunn and co-chief Peter Safran's plan to reboot the DC universe means that Gadot will not play the character moving forward. A representative for DC Studios did not immediately reply to a request for comment. A prospective Wonder Woman movie is one of several in development at the studio, which has only greenlit a small handful of movies to date. The first Superman opens in July, starring David Cornset as the Man of Steel, and was written and directed by Gunn. The second, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, opens in June 2026, starring Millie Alcock and directed by Craig Gillespie, featuring a script by Anna Nogueira. The third, Clayface, a horror film about the titular Batman villain, is set to open in September 2026 and will be directed by James Watkins of The Woman in Black, from a script by Mac Flanagan and Hossein Amini. And the fourth, dynamic duo, an animated feature about Batman's Robin's sidekick, Dick Grayson and Jason Todd, is tentatively set for June 2028. In addition, in an interview with EW, Gunn also confirms he is planning another movie about Superman, but it isn't a straightforward Superman sequel, he said. I would not say necessarily. I think that's what he means by possibly Batman coming into there. He hasn't not officially said that, but Gunn was even more coy about his larger plans for the first wave of DCU projects, which also includes TV series Peacemaker, Lanterns, and Creature Commandos. But when asked if those plans were related to the Justice League, Gunn offered a one-word tease. Sure. So, basically, a Wonder Woman movie is in the works, and it looks like there's going to be a new person to play Wonder Woman down the road. And, if we're going to start thinking about early casting on this, I really don't know. I don't know who you would get. I don't know who you could get to play Wonder Woman as of right now. At the top of my thinking right now. There was, however, one name suggested, and let me just say that if that happens, I think that's pitch perfect. I think that's something that should be done. But someone suggested Rachel Zegler as Wonder Woman, which, yeah, I would love to see that because one, she really needs it because, yeah, I think her career. I think it's going to be tough for her. I mean, I'm not saying that her career is over, but the fact that they're still blaming her for Snow White, and James Gunn has a chance to really say, hey, this woman can act, and I'm going to show you why by casting her in this. Yeah, I would say go for this. Go ahead and do this. I would absolutely be behind that indeed, but I don't think it's going to happen, unfortunately, because I think they're going to go with somebody who's been more in a recent action movie. I was thinking maybe a possible names, maybe Vanessa Kirby or Haley Atwell or Dakota Johnson, but they've all been in superhero movies recently over at Marvel. I don't know if they're going to really try to go for those roles in general. I think they will go with a relative unknown here, but Yeah, right now I would say Rachel's Egg was probably my first pick, just because I want to give. It's just because the people who badmouthed her, basically blamed her for Snow White bombing, which was not the case. The reason why that movie bombed. I'm just saying that isn't what it is. That's not the reason why it bombed, because heaven forbid she has to say something about the man in charge. But yeah, I just think it'd be hilarious if that happened. But other than that, though, I can't think of anybody else right now. So, quick word on that. That's the story about Wonder Woman getting a new movie coming soon. So, let's go ahead and look at another beloved franchise getting a new movie coming. And that is the news that, yes, ladies and gentlemen, that we are getting a Spaceballs 2 after what it's going to eventually be 40 years of waiting. They made a big deal about this on a when was it, Friday or Thursday? Thursday, they made the announcement that Spaceballs 2 was getting made, and they made the announcement with a video on YouTube talking about, they had the opening similar to Star Wars, talking about how 38 years ago there was only one Star Wars trilogy, but since then there has been a prequel trilogy, a sequel trilogy, a sequel to the prequel, a prequel to the sequel, countless TV spin-offs, a movie spin-off of the TV spin-off, which is both a prequel and a sequel, not to mention 2 Dunes, 7 Jurassic Parks, 2 Avatars, plus 3 upcoming Avatars, making 5 Avatars. Just this basically long crawl in the Star Wars format, and I wish I could play it, but music and Amazon MGM is usually pretty much just is basically just, Amazon MGM in particular is usually strict on copyright. So we're going to see what happens if I play the second half of this. But it ends with, but in 38 years there has been only one Spaceballs, and until now. And they go ahead and I'll just play the last couple seconds here of it.
After 40 years, we asked, what do the fans want? But instead, we're making this movie.
The Schwartz Awakens in 2027.
May the Schwartz be with you.
Yeah, it says The Schwartz Awakens in 2027, only in theaters. So, Spaceballs 2 is finally happening, and we've got the whole story on we have a couple. There's a lot of interesting things that came out shortly after this came out, because not only did we get the video, but we got a news article about casting, and the casting of this is very interesting. And I'm just going to go ahead and read it here. This is from Deadline Hollywood, and it says, Bill Pullman and Rick Moranis are set to reprise their respective roles as Lone Star and Dark Helmet in the new Spaceballs movie from Amazon MGM Studios, with Keke Palmer joining the cast, sources tell Deadline. Amazon declined to comment, and character details for Palmer are under wraps, as in the sequel's plot. Also newly aboard as an undisclosed role is Pullman's son, rising star Lewis Pullman from Thunderbolts, as the Hollywood Reporter was first to report that this afternoon. And this is I think the thing that's going to get most people excited about this. The addition of Moranis is particularly striking, as the actor hasn't been seen much on screens for decades. As announced this morning, the original film's director and star Mel Brooks will also be featured in the cast once again, reprising his role as Yogurt. Slated for release in theaters in 2027, the film has been described by those who have not yet read the script as a non-prequel, non-reboot sequel part 2, but reboot elements franchise expansion film. Josh Greenbaum will direct from a script by Benji Samit, Dan Hernandez, and Josh Gad, as it was announced in June of last year. Gad is also expected to star and will produce alongside Imagine Entertainment's Brian Grazer, Ron Howard, and Jeb Brody. Brooks and Greenbaum with Kevin Salter, Adam Merrims, Samit, and Hernandez exec producing. Released by MGM in 1987, the original Spaceballs is an iconic send-up of the sci-fi genre, which takes inspiration from the Star Wars franchise and other classics like 2001: A Space Odyssey. The plot revolves around the evil Dark Helmet, Moranis, and President Screw, played by Brooks, who attempt to steal the atmosphere of the peaceful planet Druidia, only to be thwarted by the hero Lone Star, played by Bill Pullman, his sidekick Barth, played by the late John Candy, and the Druish princess Vespa, played by Daphne Zuniga. Others in the cast included Joan Rivers and Dick Van Patten. The film grossed just over $38.1 million worldwide, but has endured over the years as a cult classic. Otherwise best known for turns in iconic roles like Independence Day and David Lynch's Lost Highway, Pullman has more recently been seen starring in series like The Sinner, as well as films including The High Note and Dark Waters. Upcoming, he has the Duffer Brothers Netflix series The Burrows, A24's famous opposite Zac Efron, and more. An icon of the 80s and 90s, Moranis rose to fame with roles in Ghostbusters, Little Shop of Horrors, the Honey I Shrunk the Kids films, and more after writing and starring in famed Canadian sketch series SCTV. Famously, he, for the most part, stepped away from acting in the late 90s, focused on raising his children following the passing of his wife, costume designer Ann Belsky. More recently, he teamed with Ryan Reynolds on a 2020 ad for Mint Mobile. And they're talking about Palmer here. I'll just read this quickly. Palmer's coming off the success of One of Them Days, a tri-star buddy comedy which he stars opposite SZA, which recently got a sequel set up in development. Next up, she'll be in The Pickup, Amazon's heist comedy, out August 6th, opposite Eddie Murphy. Aziz Ansari's Lionsgate comedy, Good Fortunes, out October 17th. And Boots Riley's neon pick, I Love Boosters. But of course, the big thing that everyone's going to take away from this is the fact that Rick Moranis is coming out of retirement for this movie. Now, keep in mind, he did not come out of retirement for other movies that were in development based off of films he was in, like the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids reboot. He was set to reprise his role in that movie, but then that project got shut down because of COVID. He hasn't shown up in any of the Ghostbusters sequels, and yet this is going to be the one where he eventually decides to come back into it. And I mean, that's really exciting in general. I mean, for him to do that, I mean, for him to just go and do that, and with Spaceballs and everything, that's something that's going to get a lot of people really excited about it. But I have to keep that those trepidations aside with me, of course, about how, you know, this is a comedy sequel. It's a comedy sequel that by the time this comes out, it's going to be 40 years after the original movie came out. So yeah, I should be excited for this, but at the same time, it really does feel like I still have those feelings in my back that I should not get my hopes up too high with this, because this could turn out to be really bad. But they have good people making it. Josh Greenbaum is a good director. We've seen great movies from him. Strays was not a great movie, but Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar was great. I mean, the fact they're bringing back Bill Pullman in here, I mean, wouldn't be surprised if Daphne Zuniga comes back after all this. But, I mean, this could be really good, but it could also turn out to be really bad too. But I have a little bit more hope going into it, because it is cool to see that they're getting Mel Brooks, Bill Pullman, and Rick Moranis back for this, but I still have my trepidations going forward with it. So, I mean, it's definitely something where I'm excited for it, but I just don't know how it's going to turn out in the end. It's just something that I need to see more of before I can get really, truly excited about this. But that's my thoughts on that. So Spaceballs is coming back in 2027. So let's go ahead and move on to the next story we have here. And that is that the classic tale of A Christmas Story is getting made into a movie. Wow, haven't seen that before. Haven't seen that, you know, so many times in the past. I mean, what makes this particular version so different than the other versions? Well, it's got a very interesting director behind it. After hitting a home run during the holidays with his new take on the Dracula story Nosferatu, Robert Eggers looks to be staying in the Christmas spirit for a new project he has set his sights on. Sources tell Deadline that Warner Brothers is in development with Eggers, who will write and direct a retelling of the classic Charles Dickens story, A Christmas Carol. Insiders add that while negotiations are not underway with talent, Eggers is writing the role of Ebenezer Scrooge for longtime collaborator Willem Dafoe. And that alone should get you excited right there, because if you saw Nosferatu, I mean, that was a great movie. That was easily the best movie that this guy has ever directed. I mean, he's directed some good movies before then, but that movie was amazing to look at, a visual pleaser, and it's getting a lot of the same people from that movie onto this, including the producers. Chris Columbus and Eleanor Columbus are attached to produce via Maiden Voyage. Eggers will also produce. A Christmas Carol has seen its fair share of retellings over the years, with its tale of an elderly miser visited by ghosts of his former business partner Jacob Marley and the spirits of Christmas past, present, and yet to come. The classic Dickens tale seems to be right in Eggers' wheelhouse, not only because of the supernatural elements, but also because the time period seems a perfect fit for his visual style. Nosferatu was the biggest box office hit of Eggers' career, bringing in $181 million worldwide, including $95 million domestically. The film was also a hit with critics, which sparked to the visual style that would lead to 4 Oscar nominations in the craft categories of cinematography, production design, costume design, and makeup and hairstyling. Next up for Eggers is the focus feature pick Werewolf, which he plans to shoot later this year. Dafoe has been the director's muse of late, having previously appeared in 3 of his past films, The Lighthouse, The Northman, and Nosferatu. And keep in mind, he's also doing a sequel for Labyrinth with Sony as well, so the guy is very busy, but, I mean, this gets me excited to see what a darker take on A Christmas Carol from this guy's vision could be in the end. I mean, Granted, the last time they tried to do a darker version of the story for television, we got the 2019 FX Christmas Carol miniseries, which sounded great overall. Written by Stephen Knight, featured Guy Pearce as Ebenezer Scrooge, but it took a long time to get going, and by the time it did, it was just too little, too late, and it really ended up being one of the lesser adaptations of A Christmas Carol. So if Robert Eggers can pull this off, I mean, if anybody can pull this off, it's Robert Eggers, and I have no doubt he can do it. It's just a matter of when he's going to do it. Is he going to do it? When is he going to get to it? It's going to probably be after he makes this werewolf movie. I don't think it's going to be after he does the Labyrinth movie. I think they're still waiting to see if the Labyrinth movie is going to go anywhere, but this is definitely something that I'm really curious to see how it gets done. And I think Willem Dafoe is an excellent choice to play Ebenezer Scrooge. And A Christmas Carol is one of my favorite stories of all time. So any version out there, I'm willing to give it a shot. I think this could turn out to be very, very damn good. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this one pans out. So with all that said, let's get to one last news story in the world of movies. Another Christmas-related story. And that is the fact that one of the best Christmas movies of late is getting its sequel officially confirmed now, and I was really worried about what they were saying beforehand, because two specific names were not mentioned at first, but I'm very happy to report that this has been updated. And so Violent Night 2 from 87 North and Universal is coming, and it's set for a Wednesday, December 4th, 2026 theatrical release. The first Tommy Wirkola directed movie, written by Pat Casey and Josh Miller, followed an embittered Santa played by Stranger Things' David Harbaugh as he battled mercenaries who've taken a wealthy family hostage in their home. So it's Die Hard, except replace John McClane with Santa Claus, pretty much. The original pick also starred John Leguizamo, Alex Hazel, and Beverly D'Angelo. In the sequel, Santa suits up again. Wirkola is back to helm the Casey and Miller penned sequel. 87 North founders Kelly McCormick and David Litch are back as producers. I could have sworn they said that. Let me see if I can find something here. Okay, it said on Deadpool nothing about David Harbaugh coming back, but it does say here on the Hollywood Reporter, David Harbaugh is back as the ice pick stabbing, skate slashing Santa Claus, who in the first movie was a bitter drunk headed towards turning back on the holiday until a little girl shows him the light. So yeah, David Harbaugh is coming back, thank God, and it says it's unclear if his lucidity will remain intact for the second outing. It has to, man. I mean, come on. There's no way that Universal is going to look at what they did with the first Violent Night and think to themselves, you know what this does? You know what this needs? A PG-13 sequel. That would be a disaster if they go down that route. Also unclear is if the new story will include Mrs. Claus, briefly mentioned in the first movie, which I think they're going to do that. I think that's definitely the direction they should go with that in general, and it just leads to a lot of ideas of who they should eventually get to play Mrs. Claus. And the first one that comes to mind, have a Stranger Things reunion. Bring in Winona Ryder in there. Bring in Marissa Tomei as somebody I think could pull it off. I don't know. There's so many choices of who could play that character and play it well. And it's shooting pretty soon. Universal says it's eyeing a September start of production in Winnipeg. But yeah, the original Violent Night was such a great, fun, over-the-top comedy. Because it's essentially a action comedy. It's an action comedy in the same vein as Die Hard, but it's definitely more raunchier and has elements of Home Alone in there too. Like, Home Alone plays more of a central plot of this, and the film just went balls to the wall, man, in terms of how insane and how over the top it gets in terms of its violence. It was a fantastic movie, and we needed that. It's been a rough stretch for Christmas movies as of late, but Violent Night is definitely one of those movies that I gotta watch every Christmas because I just love it so much. So yeah, you can tell I'm very excited to see what happens with Violent Night 2. And considering that they're getting everybody back for this, I'm really looking forward to it. Just don't go the PG-13 sequel route. For the love of God, don't go down that route. I'm begging you with every fiber of my body, don't do this. Just let me have this, damn it. So anyway, that's Violent Night 2. So let's go ahead and move on to the last thing I want to cover here, as we said goodbye to a notable legend this week. Yes, we're saying goodbye to one of the greatest musicians of our time, and that is, of course, Brian Wilson, who passed away this Thursday after has passed away on Thursday at the age of 82 years old. Excuse me, not 52, but he died at 82 years old. It is currently undisclosed on what caused his death, but Brian Williams, of course, was the co-founder of the Beach Boys, and he was often called a genius for his novel approaches to pop compositions and master of recording techniques. I mean, this is a guy that has been behind some of the greatest songs of all time. I mean, just great summer classics like what we just heard there, I Get Around, Good Vibrations, Surf City. Of course, this is a man that took a lot of chances with his music in general and created some of the most memorable songs of all time. I mean, one of the greatest songs of all time, God Only Knows. I mean, what more can you say about that classic? That's not already been said. Whenever you hear the song, songs like Wouldn't It Be Nice or God Only Knows in a movie trailer or a commercial, you're automatically tuned to the screen to see what they're promoting. Like, it's like God Only Knows has been in so many classics, notable movies and songs, is in movies and shows and all that. Like Love Actually, of course, is one of the great examples. Toy Story 4 had it in the trailer for that. Big Love was the intro for that show. Oh, and you just hear that song so all over the place, and it's really hard not to see why that song gets so much playtime in all these songs. And wouldn't it be nice? Classic song featured in so many shows and commercials. King of the Hill in the early seasons, of course, when Bobby is trying to figure out how to talk to girls, and he's using Luann's a hair school mask, and it feels like they're going out on dates and all that. Like that music plays so well to that. And of course, when Fallout 76 came out, they used that as part of the trailer for it. Still one of the great trailers of that, even though the game itself is not that great, But this is a guy whose music was all over the place. I mean, he really was legitimately one of the greatest musicians this world ever saw. And, you see everything that this guy was so capable of doing with his music in general, and just the great stuff that he created. Just one of the greatest songwriters ever, man. One of the greatest musicians of all time, man. Like, this is, I'm saying a lot of this, but it's all 100% true, man. This is one of those guys who was behind some of the greatest songs of all time. He had a lot of television work as well. You may have seen him in stuff like Full House. He was in the first season of Full House. He did stuff for Baywatch. He did stuff for the show Duck Dodgers. But since we are getting to the end of the show too, there's no real recommendations I have for you this week. But if there's one recommendation that I have for everyone out there, go see the movie Love and Mercy. It's a film that I've talked about it before on videos over on the main channel. I've talked about it in blog posts over on our website, but this is without a doubt one of the greatest underrated biopics you will ever see in your entire life. This movie is absolutely incredible. It's an amazing film. It's just one that I cannot recommend this one enough. If you haven't seen it, Love and Mercy is the story about Brian Wilson and his struggles with mental illness during the 1960s and the 1980s. And it has two different actors playing him. The younger Wilson, played by Paul Dano, and the older Wilson, played by John Cusack. And in the older life, he's fallen in love with Melinda Ledbetter, played by Elizabeth Banks. And Paul Giamatti plays the psychologist, Dr. Eugene Landy. And the title actually comes from a song by Wilson of the same name. And it alienates between Wilson's production of the album Pet Sounds and his treatment under Landy's 24-hour therapy service in the late 1980s, which Wilson himself called very factual, despite containing parts that weren't actually as factual. He actually had little involvement with the making of the film, although Ledbetter was relied on for the 1980s portions, and the cast and crew maintained that nothing in the film was a Hollywood embellishment, and that everything was intended to be as truthful as possible. And it really is one of the best biopics I have ever seen. This is a movie that works because the acting is so good. John Cusack and Paul Dano give these different but very similar electric performances as Brian Wilson. They are what carry the movie to greatness. On top of that, you've got these great performances by Giamatti and Elizabeth Banks playing the two people that were so close to Brian Wilson in his later years. For a first-time director in this is Bill Poliat, who directed this, who also was a producer on notable films like Brokeback Mountain, Into the Wild, The Tree of Life, and 12 Years a Slave. This is a movie that didn't get a whole lot of attention, and it didn't receive a whole lot of buzz at the box office, and really kind of came and went. And sadly, I do say sadly, this is a film that should have gotten a whole lot better. This should have been an Oscar contender. This should have been a movie that should have done so much better. And unfortunately, it just came and went. And I'm really disappointed that that happened. But nevertheless, this is still a fantastic film. And with Brian Wilson just passing away this week, this is definitely one I highly recommend checking out. This is one of my favorite underrated movies from the decade of the 2010s. This is just a great, fantastic film. I really hope this film does get a chance to get a little bit of a appraisal now that Wilson is no longer with us, but it is definitely a movie that really needs another look at. It's definitely one of the best biopics of recent memory. I love this movie. That's my big recommendation this week. Seek out Love and Mercy. You are doing yourself a major disservice by not doing so. And thus, with all that said, we wrap up another episode of the Reviewing Network Live. And thank you guys so much for watching and listening to this, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please go ahead and hit our like button, our subscribe button, and our notification button. And also check out our last episode we did last week, and also the playlist of several episodes we've done beforehand. We do post these every Sunday night, so definitely be on the lookout for those, as well as other videos we have on this channel, clipless versions, trailer reactions, you name it. We cover all the bases here, So with all that said, thank you so much for watching and listening, and I will see you guys next Sunday night. So thanks for watching and listening. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, we are out.